Okay, can you all hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, since we are looking at Delhi and its development in in the hindsight, in retrospect, we will have to understand other places which were of equal importance within Delhi. So other than Delhi-i-Kuhna, which was the earliest hub of politics and religion and cultural activities, uh, there were other places which were coming into being, and they were over a period of time becoming increasingly known, and they were also becoming a site of everyday activities. So among several suburbs, uh, the name of Kilokhari uh, figures in great measure. Uh, but what is unfortunate about Kilokhari is that we do not have archaeological remains. I mean, whatever reference we get about the palaces, about the all sorts of structures, uh, there is nothing as such which we can say that it existed in material. So that is why whatever we get to know about Kilokhari, which was even though famous, which was undoubtedly known place in medieval Delhi, had not survived the ravages of time. So all we get to know about Kilokhari is through oral traditions, ah, uh, especially the communication which had occurred between Sufis and Sufi and his disciples. So for Sufi, we talk about two main Sufis who had come and had stayed in Kilokhari. They had chosen Kilokhari and places nearby as their residence. So one is Bakhtiyar Kaki, Kutub Bakhtiyar Kaki, mm, and another one is Nizamuddin Aulia. Both were part of a very famous Sufi school, that is Chishti sect. Is it clear? So far, so good. So we will have to
Yes, sir.
understand Najaf Haider, what he does actually. It's like when
Yes.
we talk about places other than popular places, it is a very subaltern approach. हाँ, हिस्ट्री के फील्ड में जब आप अज्ञात लोगों की बात करते हैं, या जो हायरार्की में जो दोयम या तीसरे या चौथे पांचवे या सबसे निचले दर्जे के लोग होते हैं, जब उनका इतिहास करते हैं, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड ऑल्टरनेटिव हिस्ट्री. तो हमेशा नज़र सेंटर में नहीं होना चाहिए, पेरीफेरी में भी जाना चाहिए, जो इतिहास का जो दायरा होता है ना. सो नजफ अदर, बाय लुकिंग एट पेरिफेरल प्लेसेस, हाँ, like Kilokhari, had adopted this approach, which is a kind of alternative history where you also consider studying uh, places and the people and the events which do not have to do with the central activities or the central locations, which usually find places in the pages of history, in most of the narratives and the accounts. So Nazaf Haider, by paying attention to Kilokhari and its history, uh, demonstrated how this place was, no less important than Delhi-i-Kuhna, which was anyway known for all sorts of political activities. And there is a, I mean, when we refer to some written accounts, so among those written account, you consider quoting Minhajul Siraj, his Tabqate Nasri, His work is known as Tabqat-e-Nasri. And then you refer to Firoz Shah, times a text that was by Ziauddin Barni. It is a very important text, written in Persian language. Uh, it's a Tariq-e Firoz Shahi. That is another important account. And then Ibn Battuta, hmm, who actually came much later on. By then, Kilokhari had anyway become relegated and had to some extent fallen into background. However, we see who all have mentioned about Kilokhari and who have not. In similar line regarding the history of Kilokhari, the Badayuni, who comes much later on, much later on, he also gives a passing reference to Kilokhari, and he also acknowledges that there was a city by the name of this, but the problem is with regard to the disappearance, because it eventually uh, uh, retreated into the background. Hmm. So at one point of time, Kilokhari had gone on to become the hub of all sorts of activities, religious activities, trading activities, and people, and also the cultural activities. So I will give you all examples from all these respective fields, from the politics, from the culture, from the religion, and and from the economic, and you will come to know that how come Kilokhari, which was which was a place which would gravitate people from from the center and also from elsewhere, why did it actually disappear? And even when it disappeared, why don't we get some physical remains on the basis of which we can say that Kilokhari was a place where all this had existed? So the problem arises with respect to the remains. We do not have the physical remains. So towards the end of the article, uh, Najaf Haider looks out for a reason, possible reason, which can be given as an explanation for the disappearance of physical remains. So he cites that this was perhaps due to the common practice of using the materials of the then structures. So what he says actually that uh, over a period of time when there was a reconstruction going on because of change in the regime, especially during Mughal time, when Sher Shah had taken over the Mughal Empire, and then later on when Mughal Empire was revived following Sher Shah Suri, when buildings were under construction, so those new buildings which were under construction either in and around Kilokhari or far away from Kilokhari, so the old structure and their materials, they were all used. So there was nothing left which you can call the debris or the remains from the old structure. It was all actually reused, and that is why it is very difficult to locate that material and thereby talk about Kilokhari from archaeological point of view. So all we can talk about Kilokhari is through these few accounts which I just mentioned, and by reference to one bus stop. The name of that bus stop is still Kilokhari. Is this clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
सर तारीख है फिरोज शाही किसने लिखी थी?
Ziauddin Barni.
सर लिखी जियाउद्दीन भरने नहीं थी और ये फिरोज शाह पर लिखी गई थी सर.
हाँ, ये देखिए, because Ziauddin Barni is basically although he was witness to several sultans, but primarily he was witness to ये अलाउद्दीन खिलजी हो गए, और आपका ये जलालुद्दीन खिलजी हो गए, और है ना फिरोज शाह, ये सब, तो he was there.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. So now let me take you to how this Kilokhari, which became synonymous with the new city, Shahr-i-Nau. Shahr-i-Nau matlab Naya Shahr. It came to be regarded as a new city, and uh, as soon as it got this designation of new city, because this is how Ziauddin also refers to this place, new city. So th- that is how it gave rise to the counter designation, which was actually related to the Delhi-i-Kuhna. So जब नया शहर आता है, when the new city comes into existence, when it starts actually attracting people from all across sectors, from all walks of life, and then when it appears very challenging. Its rise appears very challenging to the old place and people living in the old place. So it gives rise to the binary, the new versus the old, and that competition between these two places becomes obvious in the course of narratives which we get to hear about it. So who was the one who in the very first place had taken interest in a place which was not located in Delhi-i-Kuhna, which was located little far away from that. And I have on several occasions shared with you that old place, because of being overpopulated and also because of undue intervention by ulema class and by the amirs class, that is the feudal lords, had become a place of several intrigues and conspiracies, plots, murders, assassinations, and therefore it had become very difficult for sultan or for any people who would crave for the peace of mind. It would be difficult for them to stay here. So this had come to symbolize anxiety, hmm, and uncertainty. So Kaikubad, for various reasons, might have chosen Kilokhari. Hmm. So this must have been one of the reasons. I mean, staying away from. So Kaikubad, who was Kaikubad? Kaikubad was basically grandson of Balban, and he was a son of Bugra Khan. Bugra Khan was son of Balban, and Kaikubad was son of Bugra Khan. So he preferred Kilokhari, and since it was a new place, it required some building activities before it had gone on to become a suitable place for residence and for several other activities. So he paid a considerable attention in this respect. He got palace built up there, and he got forts built up there, and he actually also got a basic fundamental defense system built up there. So over a period of time, or in a short span of time during his lifetime only, this place had come to assume a basic framework, which made it fit and good enough for the political activities and other everyday activities. That was one reason. Another reason, because it was close to a Yamuna river, and water had throughout history been a major concern for Delhi's inhabitants. So this place was preferable to Delhi-i-Kuhna, especially in regard to water. And so water was one issue, and then other was freedom from the overcrowded place, and freedom from the place which had come to be equated with the dirt. So Delhi-i-Kuhna, because of being overcrowded, had also been associated with the dirty place. So I mean, politically speaking, it had become a center of intrigues and conspiracies. So politically, it was becoming redundant. Hmm. It was becoming redundant, but let us not be conclusive, because it did not become redundant. It remained challenged. It felt the challenge in the wake of rise of Kilokhari as a new city, but nowhere and never ever it actually became redundant. It continued to be. So that is also discussed by Najaf Haider at a place. where he emphasizes that no matter how important Kilokhari had become over a period of time, especially during during Kaikubad and also during Ruknuddin Firoz. If you remember, when Iltutmish had died, when Iltutmish had died, his son before Razia became. So after Iltutmish and before Razia, there was a ruler, Ruknuddin Firoz, Iltutmish's son. He was young. So he, from his time onwards, this place had come into knowledge. So one of the deputy, uh, before Razia became Sultan, one of the deputy, his name is Nizamuddin, Nizam, he had actually rebelled. He had rebelled and he had stayed in Kilokhari. So Ruknuddin Firoz, taking cognizance of this, marched to handle him, and he, having feared, uh, fled and left for Agra. Hmm. So, what happens while he is absent in the Delhi-i-Kuhna, that is a Delhi, which is known by several titles. It is known as, uh, you know, uh, uh, Dar al-Sultanate. Dar al-Sultanate means the center of the Sultanate. It is also known as the Hazrat-e-Delhi. So these are the few titles which actually are applied for the old Delhi. And another title is a Dar al-Khalifa, which is not for the Delhi-i-Kuhna per se. It is for the Siri, because Siri, under the supervision of Alauddin Khilji, which is not far away from Delhi-i-Kuhna, had become very sought after place, especially in the view of Sultan. So that had come to achieve this title, Dar ul Khalifa. So a place which is as good as the central place of the Khalifa. So Kilokhari, on the other hand, was developing its own identity in contrast with these few titles. So from the time of Ruknuddin Firoz, uh, this place had become known. So when he had gone to catch hold of the deputy who had become rebellious, so it was all actually plot. It seems, because when he left Delhi Kohna for Kilokhari, so that person he left for elsewhere. So while he was coming back, uh, Razia had become Sultan. She had been made Sultan, and before he could actually reach, and before he could actually resume, he was caught hold of and he was murdered. So Delhi-i-Kuhna, which had anyway become synonymous with the intrigues and conspiracies, proved this once again. So Razia Sultan had become, and Razia Sultan also, bore the brunt of what Delhi-i-Kuhna was known for. So she was also, she also fell victim to everyday conspiracies and everyday politics of the Delhi-i-Kuhna, which was largely dominated by ulema class and the Amir class. Is this clear? सो कॉन्ट्रास्ट डेवलप हो रहा है, मतलब कि पुराना दिल्ली मतलब नॉट पुराना दिल्ली, ये दिल्ली मतलब कि जो दिल्ली एक कोहना है, ओल्ड सिटी, और नया शहर जो किलोखरी है। यस अंकुर।
Uh, Sir, in the killing of Iltutmish, sorry, Ruknuddin
रुकनुद्दीन
Firoz,
फिरोज, फिरोज, हाँ।
is there, yes, sir, is there any conspiracy of Razia Sultan?
रजिया वाज नॉट डायरेक्टली इन्वॉल्व्ड, बट रजिया, being a very charismatic figure, and since Iltutmish uh, did not discriminate while he was raising, son and daughter, he paid equal attention, in fact, more attention to Razia. So she had become a king-like figure. Hmm. In her everyday behavior, she was very competent, and she was very vocal, was very charismatic. What we get to know from several sources and accounts. So she it happened to be fortunate. She happened to be fortunate, and she was supported by, although the group was divided into factions. Some were opposing him and some were supporting him, but those who were supporting him, they commanded more power. So they were able to place her at the center, and they displaced Ruknuddin Firoz, and they in fact got rid of him. So Razia was not directly involved, but she was not far away from all this. So she actually होता है ना कि जब आप ट्रेन में चढ़ते हैं, तो ट्रेन में चढ़ते हैं तो भीड़ वाली ट्रेन में आपको भी नहीं पता होता है, चढ़ना तो आपको है, ऐसा नहीं है कि यू डोंट वांट टू बोर्ड द ट्रेन, लेकिन कौन से बोगी में चढ़ेंगे आपको पता नहीं। तो भीड़ के साथ कई बार आप पुल हो जाते हैं। तो दिस इज हाउ एवरीडे पॉलिटिकल लाइफ वाज इन दिल्ली कोहना। So she was a competent, she was a charismatic figure, and she was very likely to become, king or queen, given the opportunity. But she was not at the forefront of this, making claim that she actually wanted to become the head of the state. But underlying feeling was there, and she had a support, and she had gone on to become, queen and the king. I mean, sultan ही बोलते हैं, क्योंकि सुल्ताना वर्ड यूज नहीं करते हैं, रजिया सुल्तान। दैट इज अनदर इम्पोर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट। तो ये है। एंड कैकुबाद है ना, who comes much later on, uh, he actually chooses this place for this very reason, because it is close to water, away from everyday conspiracies, and it was a new place, so it was not very crowded also, and he could have actually, and since what we get to know from Najaf Haider articles is that his tendency, he was not purely political person. He was a he would take very keen interest in material world, so he would like to live his life to the full. So he would like to be in the company of dancers, he would like to be in the company of musicians, he would love uh, he would love taking alcohols. So I mean, he was very pleasure seeking person. Hmm. He was of Epicurean word आपने use किया है नजफ हैदर ने, who had supported and who were in favor of such a philosophical idea where life is supposed to be enjoyed. Hmm. One should not actually abstain from the worldly pleasure. One must seek all sorts of pleasures, including sensual pleasure. So this newly established place uh, had everything necessary for pleasure, everything necessary for the enjoyment. So it had a मैं खाना क्या बोलते हैं जहाँ पे शराब पीते हैं ना, so it had a bar, it had a bar where people could have enjoyed. Bar means, do not imagine bar of contemporary time. उस समय का जो बार होता था वो अपना अलग हिसाब किताब होता था, and this place eventually, under the supervision of Kaikubad, had become full of life. It has become a full of life. It had become very vibrant, and people would have a fun. People would have a fun. But see, this place did not only compete with the Delhi-i-Kuhna, it also started competing with the Sufis place. Sufis place means that was Ghiaspur. uh, Ghiaspur, and that is where Nizamuddin Aulia was there. And so, because Muslim inhabitants, Muslim people in their everyday life have, a set of priorities, and where the pleasure related activities, where fun related activities, take the lower order. What is most important is, the namaz, attending mosque, going to madrasa, and leading an austere life. Hmm. Leading an austere life. So these are a few things to cite, which are very important in a in a Muslim's life. But what happened in Kilokhari? These very things were taking backseat. People here tend to enjoy a lot, and some of the non-Islamic traditions like Nowruz festival. Nowruz festival came to be celebrated here with much fanfare. So this was uh, rising in contrast with the Delhi-i-Kuhna, which was more or less more Islamic and close to Islamic doctrine, compared to what was happening in Kilokhari. So this is how you have to see. And during Kaikubad, because one thing which was there throughout this period and also later on, that was the concern regarding security and the protection from the foreign invasion, especially the Mongol invasions, which had become a routine affair, and which it would very often threaten the empire. So it's not that it was just a pleasure centric place, it was not that it was just culture centric place, it was not that just it was a a place where non Islamic traditions and practices had come to prevail. Besides this, there was a sufficient attention, adequate attention paid towards the safety and security as well. As a result of this attention, this place, besides being cultural and vibrant place, had also come to give an appearance which was nothing short of a palace meant for the safety and security. So one would also cite, the presence of army personnel, military personnel. Is this clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Ha. So, so this is how we have to approach, and we have to see. I mean, at one place there is a quote unquote that non-religious activities and non-political activities had, come to become so prominent in place of traditional activities, religious activities, and the core political activities, that there is a quote unquote like that mosque. It was deserted. It had become empty, and people in general living in and around Kilokhari would take more interest in drinking wine, enjoying music. So wine had disturbed the sensibility of the people, which had come to become synonymous with the disorder and chaos and immoral aspect of this very place, Kilokhari. So Kilokhari was basically trying to come out of all this, but Kaikubad was also, I mean, the people got rid of him also. He was also murdered, and then with his end, Kilokhari started, falling prey to the neglect. Because later on, these very ulemas and the amirs managed to revive Delhi-i-Kuhna again. And one more thing which comes to our notice is whether Kilokhari had come to replace Delhi-i-Kuhna in true sense. Had it become capital? Had it actually become the core economic center? So the answer is no, because in the light of evidences, in the light of body of evidences which we have, uh, if it had actually become the core political, core economic, and core religious center, uh, uh, one would have noticed the mint where the money would be minted, and one would have seen that future sultan would have chosen this place as their capital. But this did not happen. This did not happen, despite the fact that this new city was in competition with the old city. So mint continued to be in where it was, that is Delhi-i-Kuhna. Likewise, uh, economic activities, the major economic activities and marketplaces, they continue to be here. They continue to be here, although the person, a figure like Ziauddin Barni, whose father is supposed to have had a house located in Kilokhari, and Barni also, who was originally from Bulandshahr. He himself was, he was young at the time of Kaikubad, but later on, but he was a witness. He was witness to what he would hear from his uh, you know uh, uh, great his forefathers, from his senior people and from the people. So he was witness to what was going on, and he had also heard about Kilokhari. So he had given an account of this place. So it is from this account that I am sharing you all this detail. So he is also talking about it. He is also talking about it. But Ibn Battuta, who for some reason has not paid attention to or mentioned, Kilokhari as such, because he in his account is mostly talking about Siri, Jahanpana, Delhi-i-Kuhna. So it's- this somehow gives some sense of doubt whether there was a place called Kilokhari. So see, the place cannot be denied because in several accounts, in Minhajuddin Siraj, sorry, Minhaj ul Siraj, whose Tabqat Nasri is also talking about this. So there is no dearth of information and there is no dearth of references to the Kilokhari. However, and the question which actually concerns today's historian is why we do not have the physical remains of Kilokhari, which if it was there, it should have survived in at least material forms, in remains forms, which is not there. So that is one concern. But with reference to this, writer and their accounts who had lived that time, and they make frequent references to Kilokhari. They make a frequent reference to Kilokhari, and Kilokhari, that Kilokhari, for which we find several references in this account, and the Kilokhari, which is still there, at the bus stop, that very bus stop in that neighborhood, which is associated with the Kilokhari. That bus stop says something that Kilokhari, the name which is there, has something to do with the Kilokhari, which has found several mentions in all these accounts. Is this clear? Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And remember that even
Yes, sir.
people, Nizamuddin Aulia, uh, having realized that Kilokhari, because this is where mosque was also there, because Ghiaspur, which was kind of a place developed by Balban, did not have a mosque. So for prayer and for several other everyday activities, people from Ghiaspur would move to Kilokhari. So Nizamuddin Aulia would also do similar thing for prayer and all. He would actually often, go to Kilokhari. Eventually, he chose Kilokhari as the base place. So he would take care of people who would come to Kilokhari. He would also take care of people who were living in the Ghiaspur because his popularity had increased manifold. And he had become a figure known far and wide. So people from all over places had come. So this place eventually had become very populous. मतलब आबाद हो गया था जो if I have to use this word ना आबाद. And there are several palaces which were built. तो उसमें सबका नाम दिया हुआ है, इसमें पर्जियन में नाम है ना, उसको अलग अलग टाइटल मिला हुआ है. तो यहाँ पे गार्डन वाज डेवलप्ड हियर, पैलेस वाज डेवलप्ड हियर, market was developed here, and several other activities like music making and wine making and wine drinking and music enjoyment. These kind of activities had come to characterize this Shahr-i-Nau, that is a Kilokhari. And much later on, after the end of Kaikubad, when it was taken over by new political dispensation, that is a Khilji. Huh? When Khilji had taken over, so that had come to be associated with the revolution because it was a shift from the Turkic ruler to the non-Turkish. So Jalaluddin Khilji, who had actually taken over, was very skeptical since it was known that Delhi-i-Kuhna was not an easy place. So he, for his political convenience, he, fearing his life, preferred to stay in Kilokhari, where he added a few new dimensions to already existing structures. So he paid attention to activities which had for various reasons remained incomplete or which could have been refurbished and renovated. So these kind of activities uh, were promoted and were fostered by Jalaluddin Khilji, who for initial period chose Kilokhari as his political base. So under his supervision and under his protection, Kilokhari came to assume a new level of. So it was like a revival after Kaikubad. This place had fallen, prey to the neglect. But with the coming of Jalaluddin Khilji, this received some sort of impetus, some sort of fillip. So it again started regrowing. But this is now how it was, to go on in the future. So eventually, with the end of Jalaluddin Khilji, when Alauddin Khilji came, he chose a place which was not Kilokhari. He chose a place, Delhi-i-Kuhna only. But he also realizing that Delhi-i-Kuhna is a place which would undermine, which would keep undermining. So he, not very far away from the Delhi-i-Kuhna, he chose his own place. That is a Siri and a Hauj Khas, where he had built a new water bodies for catering to people's water needs, and also to meet his own water's demands. So he had built up a new water body here, Hauj Khas. आज भी है हौज खास. It is a very elite and posh neighborhood. So that was it as far as this article is concerned. So this place, which when you talk of history of Delhi, this is an alternative place among other several places. So we cannot lose sight of this because this is equally important, especially in the light of historical fact, where several sultans and several Sufi figures and several people had occupied this place. They had lived there and they had lived imprint there, which for several reasons has not survived, but it survives in different forms. So text is the key source, which actually provides informations regarding a place like Kilokhari. So one cannot deny, and read this article. It is a short article, and it will give you some perspective that when you think of a place, uh, do not allow your vision to be blinkered. Allow this allow your vision to get a wider picture. So where you also capture other parallel and alternative developments. Otherwise, what it becomes a in the words of Sunil Kumar, who says that we don't have to be always state centric. You don't have to just keep your eyes to things which are glittering. Ah, if you divert your attention to other places and other events, you will find them equally interesting and equally important. And it's not that those places and those events which are parallel to the mainstream events, they are not unconnected. They are very well connected to each other. We have to find the connection between these two alternative things which are part of the same temporal reality. It's not that they are existing in two different times. They are living together. They are co-terminus, and they have connection with each other. It's not that by diverting your attention to this, you are breaking up the basic fabric of history. Rather, you are enriching the history. You are making it larger in size and complete and coherent. So there is no contradiction. It's just that you have to include, and that is how history becomes far more interesting. So since this is the history of Delhi, by talking about Kilokhari, you get a different perspective. So Delhi is not one city, because you have to break this, perception, which talks about a monolithic single place. So it's not that Delhi is a one place where sultans are looking, staying at one place and they are doing everything from there. It's not that straightforward and linear. There are, it's a more complex. The picture is far more complex than, such tendencies way of looking at the history of Delhi. So when you talk about Kilokhari, when you talk about Siri, when you talk about Tughlakabad, Adilabad, several other places which were contemporary of Delhi-i-Kuhna, you get a broader and larger picture of Delhi in hindsight, in retrospect. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Koi, is
Yes.
there anything you would like to ask? Because I think that is all we can talk about this. I will just stop the recording.